Okay, Rabbi Say, welcome back after a little bit of Zmanim. Getting started. Overnight eggs, overnight garlic, overnight onions, peeled. Could I eat it? Could I not? What's the deal? Ruach Ra, scary, heebie-jeebie. Is this something to worry about? 2024, do we still care about this stuff? Let's find out. Okay, so it all starts with the Gemara, Nida Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. The Gemara says, Amar Reb Shimon bar Yochai, we have Lag Baimer coming up soon. So Reb Shimon bar Yochai says, there are 5 things that if you do, you're mischayeh b'nafshay, and it's damei b'roishay. What does that mean, mischayeh b'nafshay v'damei b'roishay? So as Rashi explains, some Rishonim have it a little bit the opposite way, but we'll work with Rashi. Mischayeh b'nafshay means it's suicidal. You want to commit suicide? These 5 things, doing these 5 things are like suicide. Mischayeh b'nafshay, you'll die from doing these things. V'damei b'roishay, what does that mean? That means you're responsible. That means you're going to be punished for it. It's not just unconnected from you. It's not just nebuch that this happened. Just like if you commit suicide, you have to pay. You killed yourself. So too over here, mischayeh b'nafshay, you have to pay for it. If you do these 5 things, you just committed suicide, and it's not just that you're going to die. Besides that, you actually get punished. So, not so cool. Now, the first thing on the list of the 5 things is these 3 categories are really one thing on the list, which is eating onions, eggs, or garlic that was peeled before the night, and they went overnight, over alayim alayla, and then in the morning you go and you eat them. For that, you're mischayeh b'nafshay b'damei b'roishay. Okay, so stay away, seemingly, right? So actually, interesting enough, and what's the reason? It seems the Ruach Ra goes upon these. When you leave it overnight, the Ruach Ra says, hey, overnight? Yeah. Ruach Ra jumps onto that, and we don't mess with Ruach Ra. Now, surprisingly, this halacha is not brought in the Rambam. It's not brought in the Rif. It's not brought in the Torah. It's not brought in the Shulchan Aruch. It's not brought in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. And it's not brought in the Chacham Zadam. So, what's going on? It's just totally left out. Why? So we don't have to worry about it, I guess. So not so fast, because I guess it's not halakha l'maisa, seemingly, if it's just left out. But it's a little surprising that it wouldn't be halakha l'maisa, because nobody in the Gemara argues on it. So if nobody in the Gemara argues, then it's weird for it to be left out. So potentially the reason why it might be left out from the modern day, from the halakha, from the Shulchan Aruch, from the Torah, etc., is because, as the Maram Rattenberg says, that Ruach Ra doesn't apply nowadays. The concept of Ruach Ra is that the Maram Rattenberg, it's 2024. No, Maram Rattenberg said this like almost 1,000 years ago, that Ruach Ra doesn't apply anymore. And if Ruach Ra doesn't apply anymore, so you don't have to worry about any of these dinim. Fast forward another, I don't know what it is, 500 years or so, and the Marshal, probably more than that actually, between the Maram Rattenberg to the Marshal, probably more like 700 years. Yeah, so at the Marshal, we don't have Ruach Ra anymore. And if we don't have Ruach Ra anymore, you don't have all those Gemara stuff about Ruach Ra, Al Tadag, don't worry, no problem. Why wasn't it in the Rambam? So many people know that the Rambam, he wasn't focused or wasn't into the different ways to present it, but the Rambam wasn't big into all these heebie-jeebie, Ruach Ra type things. I don't know if some have the Gersa that he didn't hold true, which is a little, Keneged Gemaras seemingly. Maybe he holds that those Gemaras were like giving over a different idea. He's a guy at the Gemaras, or maybe he did hold of it, but he held it doesn't apply anymore. Bisman the Rambam, or maybe he held of it, but he didn't believe people should focus on it because he was trying to get the focus off some other heebie-jeebies of the time. Whatever, there's multiple pshatim as to why the Rambam wasn't into this stuff, but it seems to be that the Rambam wasn't into this type of stuff, so that's why it was left out of the Rambam. I'm not clear why it was left out of the Rif, but once something's left out of the Rambam and the Rif, it's not such a kasha that when it gets left out of the Shulchan Aruch, because the Shulchan Aruch's two out of the three main sources are the Rambam and the Rif. So maybe it's uncovering some of the mystery, but still, at the end of the day, if the Shulchan Aruch feels that this is important for us nowadays, you expect him to bring it, and he has a tightest dibur on the topic. So, tzarechim. Now, if you stop now, I would say, okay, we don't have to worry. But then something very surprising happens. If you look to the big hitter achronim of late, which is the Shulchan Aruch Harav, and the Aruch HaShulchan, the Chavetz Chaim, the Ben Ish Chai, they all bring it now. So, I don't know. So if all the big hitter achronim now are bringing it, or most of them, once again, the Kitzer and the Chachmas Adam, which are big hitter achronim, they didn't bring it. But the Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Aruch HaShulchan, the Ben Ish Chai, these guys are bringing the Pri Chadash also. So if they're all bringing it, so maybe we do it. It seems like we do have to keep it. The Chavetz Chaim. So if they were all bringing it, so seemingly we have to keep it. I was wondering what was going down from like 600 years ago to 200 years ago. Because those main achronim from 600 years ago to 200 years ago didn't bring it. So I'm wondering, like historically, I don't really have a way of checking this up, but I'm wondering historically if like people weren't worried during that kufa, because the achronim of those couple hundred years seem not to be focused on it. But Lamaisa, the achronim of the last 200 years primarily are focused on it, and therefore the chayra, we have to keep it. Or do we have to keep it? Because Lamaisa, it's not in the Shulchan Aruch. So, Ramosha Feinstein, he has somewhat of a, I guess you call it a pshara, a compromise. Ramosha Feinstein says that we have to keep it, or we should keep it, when it is in the exact case of the Gemara. But once there's a shina kitzas, a slight deviation, then you no longer have to keep it. Rav Vazner said he has a Kabbalah from the Chazon Ish, same thing. Once there's a slight deviation, ein bai ela b'chadushay, we only have exactly the case of the Gemara. Once there's a slight deviation from the case of the Gemara, you don't have to keep it. Zakt Rav Elyashiv, same thing. So we have a Bezdin Gadol over here, Moshe Feinstein, the Chazon Ish, and Rav Elyashiv all saying this idea. We're keeping it, but we're not being so. Usually you have a concept of that sakana is more stringent than isser. And we don't mess. Anything sakana, you have to stay away. You don't go close to it with a 10-foot pole when something's sakana. But over here, since it's not brought in the Torah, it's not brought in the Shulchan Aruch, we don't have a 10-foot pole. We're not going to do it. If it's as it says in the Gemara, we're not going to do it. Slight deviation, we're okay. That is the approach of that Bezdin Gadol. Now, not everybody had this approach. There was the famous shita of the Kloisenberger Rebbe. The Kloisenberger Rebbe said famously in Lag BaOmer Tish in 1976, he says, "It is clear to me, Bara li kashemesh, it is clear as day to me, that the reason why so many people are getting and dying from Yena Machla is because they're not being makbid on these dinim. These dinim of the peeled onion, peeled garlic, peeled eggs, they're not being makbid, they're not being careful, and that's why people are dying from Yena Machla." That's what the Kloisenberger Rebbe said. So that's a pretty strong statement. I'm not going to start asking my Litvish kashas on it. Then what? The Goyim dies, the Ruach Ra. But Goyim, I'm not going to start barking up that tree right now. But the Kloisenberg Rebbe said, and therefore in Kloisenberg and Sanz and these places, they are very, very serious. No kulas on these halachas. They're very serious about this stuff. Okay. Now, what do we do with the Maisa? So I think like this. If one has the minhag to be very machmer, they have a shtickle Kloisenberger blood in them, they have the minhag to be machmer, So be machmir. It's not a minhag shel shtas. But for the standard person that doesn't have a specific minhag, doesn't know of having a specific minhag, then l'chayra we would follow the Bez Negadol, and you would be makbid on the ikar dinim. But anything that's a slight deviation, shina kisas, we can be meko. Fine. So let's start talking. What does it mean overnight eggs? Over alei malayla, as the Gemara says. So, does that mean alois? What's the night? Is the night that moment of alois? So let's say you peel them 5 minutes before alois, and then you want to eat them 5 minutes after alois. Would that be a problem? 10 minutes, but it was that point of when it switched from night to day? Or is it maybe the entire night? It has to be peeled before tzeis or shkia maybe. They call it tzeis. Maybe peeled before tzeis and then left until alois. Or, and was it a din in you? Maybe from before you went to sleep to after you woke up. What does it consider? What's over aleim halayla? So, interestingly enough, the Kloisenberger Rebbe, who's generally machmer over here, he says, he proves from, interestingly enough, he proves from the Gra that only if it was peeled the entire night. So it's only a problem if it was peeled before alois. And Reb Chaim Kanievsky as well, he proves from the wording of a Mishnah in Taharis that Oiver Aleim Malayla means the entire night. And therefore, if it was peeled, after tzeis, so therefore it would not be a problem. On the other side, the Shevet Kahasi, which is Reb Shammai Gross, the Belzer Dayan, so he says that it's a problem at even part of the night. So if you peeled it in the middle of the night and it stayed overnight until alois, it is a problem. This, by the way, if you think about it, is a huge, huge nafkamina. I think most of the time that we have this shayla, most of the time that somebody was cooking late at night. Now, if somebody doesn't know the halacha, maybe you'll have it more often. But somebody who more or less knows the halacha, when are you going to have it? They cracked the egg to base the challah, and then whatever, it didn't happen, it didn't rise in time, it didn't this, they didn't get around to it. They cracked the egg to make the schnitzel, and then they went to sleep, and they cut the onions to make the egg salad, and they didn't get around to it, they went to sleep. That's usually not like when they, cut the onions at 3 p.m. in the afternoon and they're just sitting around all day. I'm not saying it never happens, but I think most of the time that the shayla comes up, the onions, garlic, eggs have been cracked after tzeis. I think it's most of the time that you're going to have a shayla for somebody that knows the halacha. Maybe for somebody that doesn't know the halacha and just learns the halacha, you might have it more. But the mishaps are usually going to happen in this scenario. So who we would pass like would be a tremendous nafkamina. So Lamaisa, the pashas for sure is to paskin like like the Kloisenberger Rebbe. If he's going to be mekel, that's a good source to be mekel. And Reb Chaim Kanievsky over the Shevet Kahasi, so the pashas is we could be mekel. Okay. Now the Gemara goes and lists one suggestion that doesn't work to save you from the Isser, and one suggestion that does work to save you from the Isser. What doesn't work? So if you put it into a container and close it, that does not work. The Ruach Ra still gets upon it. So some people ask, it's a comment, well, if it's in the fridge, is it okay? Answer, no, it's not okay. Because the Gemara itself explicitly says that putting it in a container does not work. So that's pretty clear, it does not work. What does work? If you leave on a peel, now obviously it's not peeled if you leave on the entire peel. So if you leave on even a little peel, as the poskim say, or you leave on the root, which is like the hairs coming out of the onions or the garlic, right? Eggs don't have roots, but onions and garlics have roots. So if you leave the roots on, or you leave a little bit of the peel on, that is okay. Now, there's a little bit of a controversy. We know that a little peel works. What about, does a little root work? So it seems to be the pashas is that a little root would work as well. Now, you might notice they sell these peeled garlics in the store. I believe I was planning on going to check one out. I didn't actually make it to check one out, but I'm pretty sure they leave on those a little bit of root, right?
There's a little bit of the brown on the bottom, but I don't know by definition of the root.
So it's a little bit of brown. Is there any like hairs coming out of it? Like the garlic has like these like it's like a little hairy.
Right. I think that part is not.
So the hairy part's gone already. You think it's just a little.
Because that's like kind of, I think what that comes off as like one big piece.
Uh huh.
Kind of. I don't know.
Okay, so unsure. Maybe there might be other heterim that they use as well. There's another couple of options which we're going to get to. There may be root left on those. Okay, fine. Maybe I should have made it my business to go check it out. I wanted to. It just didn't happen. Okay, fine. Weiter. Now, is there any basis for somebody that says, no, I'm not saimich on that. I don't rely on this peel thing or root thing. I'm machmir when it comes to these ideas of overnight onions. So there are people that are very, very firm out there. But you can't be firmer than the Gemara. And if the Gemara itself says that when there's peel or root, maybe you want to be machmir that you want the entire root. Fine. So that means the Ruach Ra stay away. And you might ask me, why do the Ruach Ra stay away when there's some peel or root? Well, I don't know why the Ruach Ra like attacking overnight onions in the first place. But for whatever reason, I guess it's not as appealing for the Ruach Ra, and I don't know why. I never had a chavrusa shaf with the Ruach Ra. So I can't really tell you, but apparently the Gemara knows, and that's what the Gemara says. So that's what the Gemara says. That's what we work with. You can't be firmer than the Gemara. Can't be firmer than the Gemara. Fine. So, what else is a possible heter? So Rabelsky says the Chedish. He says that if it's hermetically sealed, which I think is a fancy word for vacuum packed, if it's hermetically sealed, the vacuum packed, there's no ear in there, then it is allowed. Why? Because this is different than the containers that they had at the time of the Gemara. And as Ramosha said, Rabelsky's a Talmud of Ramosha, as Ramosha said, that when it's a shina kitzas, this is the difference. This is different than the Gemara. In the Gemara, they never had hermetically sealed. They never had vacuum packed. And therefore, if you peel the onions or the eggs, you put them in the vacuum pack container, it's all good. That's what Rabelsky says. Now, Rav Kalas takes issue with Rabelsky because he says, "Mehechi tesi." How do you know such a thing? How can you say such a thing? We understand the idea that when the onion is a little different and the garlic is a little different, that's when Moshe said you could be mekel. But over here, the onion and the garlic is the same exact onion and garlic. It's just that the container is different. What's your right to say that from a different container, the halacha would be different? So Rav Kalas was not very happy with Rav Belsky's psak. Now, I want to come and defend Rav Belsky against Rav Kalas's attack. And I think maybe this is where... also Rav Belsky threw in one more thing. Over here, it's not just a difference. There's a difference in what's qualitative difference. Vacuum packed is like it's back in its peel, and it's like it's backed in its shell. Just like in its peel, it would last forever, whatever. So when it's vacuum packed, it will last just as long as it was in the peel. So it's like you put it back in its peel. So it's not just different; it's a whole different madrega of being sealed. Now I want to defend Rebelsky because, like this, the Gemara had a havim, that a container would work. And it says, no, the container won't work. So there is something to talk about. The conversation starts. You can see that the conversation starts about a container helping. So once you see that the conversation starts about a container helping, So therefore, I think there's right for Belsky to say a container which is a totally different madrega, a totally different eiches type of container, that container of the Gemara didn't work. But we see there's a havmin of a container working, so perhaps this container would work. And therefore, it's not the same exact thing as the Gemara. Once it's not the same exact thing as the Gemara, so we are allowed to be makel, because the mice, at the end of the day, as we said, it's not brought in the Shulchan Aruch.
You can't extend that logic to a refrigerator?
No.
Because that's something that's like another madrega?
Yeah, I mean, this is all, I think the hermetically sealed is a different madrega more than the refrigerator. I think. But I could hear the argument. I could hear somebody trying to make it. As remember, Belsky himself is quite a chiddush. So to take it even one step further, that would be difficult. Fine. Now, another common heter that's used is if you mix you mix into the onion or egg, you mix other ingredients. So the Smag actually says, Smag says it's okay when you mix other ingredients. Now, why? Why does mixing other ingredients help? It's still onion in there. It's still egg. It's still garlic. Why would it help to mix other ingredients? So the pshat seems to be it's no longer eggs. It's eggs with onions. It's no longer onions. It's onions with oil. And therefore, once it's something else, the Ruach Ra stays away. We have no precedence that the Ruach Ra likes oil. Maybe the Ruach Ra gets scared away by oil. And once we have no precedence for that, one could be makel. Now, do we need to add something of significance? What exactly counts as adding? So we see from the Mishnah Brura, where he's talking about a Halachos Shabbos point. This is not his focus at all. But we see he allows you to mix vinegar with onions before Shabbos and leave them for Shabbos. So you could see that vinegar on the onions is good enough for the Mishnah Brura. Once again, he wasn't focused on the sugya, but from the fact he said you could do that, so you see he's okay with the vinegar and onions. It says in the Orchos Rabbeinu that the Chazon Ish was okay leaving raw onions in a salad. So raw onions in a salad, that's enough. It's not onions anymore. It's a salad. And we see that that's okay. The Velt says you can mix in some salt or some sugar, and that's okay. Now, if the Velt says it, the Velt says it. How much salt? How much sugar? So, Rav Moshe Sternbach says it has to be enough salt that it wouldn't be batal b'shishim. You need like close to 2% salt. Now, if you're mixing 2% salt into your eggs on a normal basis, that is a recipe for some like serious diabetes. That is a lot of salt. 2% salt in eggs is a lot of salt. You do this like once off, okay, whatever. Your eggs are going to be salty, by the way. But that's a lot of salt. I don't think people are doing this because I think that's really a lot. Maybe with the kosher salt, you could like get away with it or whatever, but you're mixing the fine salt in it, that's going to make that's pretty intense. Okay. The Kloisenberger Rebbe says it has to be enough to change the taste, which by the way is going to be less than Rosh Hashanah's 2%. But I think some people have this idea you could just sprinkle a little salt in it. If you sprinkle a little salt in the eggs, it doesn't seem like the Kloisenberger Rebbe is so happy with that. It seems like it has to be noticeable, the change in taste. Not like, you could get some professional chef that could tell you, taste it and say that there's a little something in there, And also, by the way, when you add salt into the raw egg, you have to add more salt into the raw egg to affect the taste than into a cooked egg. Just a little, I think, cooking idea. Fine. Rebelsky says it needs to have a real hashpa on the egg, which is a similar type idea to what we said change the taste. It has to have a real hashpa. However, he is makel in adding preservatives. Even though you won't be able to taste those preservatives, but l'maisa, those preservatives make a significant change to the egg. So once there's a significant change to the egg, even if you can't taste it or see it, but since it will last now, the Rebelsky allows that. The Ben Ish Chai, he's much more machmir. He says you have to mix something and cook it with the thing that you mixed. Meaning, if you mixed it and it remains raw, according to the Ben Ish Chai, that would be a problem. Now, the minig is not to be machmir like the Ben Ish Chai. Fine. So the Mesa, but it's not so simple to just do the sprinkle a little salt and call it a day. It has to be something of some significance, according to Rav Poskim. Now,
What about making egg salad and just egg and onions?
So how can you make egg salad? So exactly, I'll get there in a second. So there's a minig Yisrael. So it's interesting. It's a little bit random how there's a minig Yisrael of having egg salad Shabbos day. It's a random food. Why is that important? But it seems to be there's I don't know how many hundreds of years they've been doing this, but we've been making egg salad for Shabbos day. Now, generally that's okay because you're generally mixing into the egg salad oil or mayonnaise. So when you're mixing in oil or mayonnaise, that for sure is that significantly changes the texture and the taste, and therefore that would be fine. Now, the question is, what about if you want to make your egg salad just eggs and onions? So if you make it just eggs and onions, would that be a issue? So Zuck Dayan Fisher, it's no problem. Why is it no problem? Because it's not eggs. It's not onions. It's egg salad. Yeah, they say a riddle. What are two things that are by itself asur, but when you mix them together, they become mutter? So raw eggs and raw onions. Raw eggs are a problem. Raw onions are a problem. But you mix them together, it's all good. Now, Dayan Fisher loves that riddle. The Kloisenberger Rebbe hates it. Because the Kloisenberger Rebbe says that that's a problem. One Isser plus one Isser equals two Isser. So the Kloisenberger Rebbe says, that's a big problem. Fine. The Ben Ish Chai would certainly hold it's a problem. Because he says, after you mix it, you have to cook it together. And over here, it's not being cooked together. So the Maisa, it sounds like it's a good idea to put a little oil or mayonnaise into that, or at least salt, into your egg salad. Now the Minchus Yitzchak explains that there's the minog midachtikim to go and make egg salad on Shabbos morning. Now it's very strange because there's so many isurim involved, potentially making egg salad. You have to really know how to dance around the isurim. You have to dance around the bayrer by doing it right before the meal. You have to dance around teichin, even though it's not gedulei karka, so the pashas says there isn't teichin, but some of the machmir are machmir for a shita that it might be teichin, and they want to, use the back of a spoon or something like that. You have to dance around muksa because the shell is going to be muksa machmas gufay, so you peel it right directly into the garbage. And you have to dance around lush, because when you mix it together with the oil or the mayonnaise to make one form, so you have to do a crisscross on a shinadik way. There's a lot of yisurim that you have to dance around to make egg salad. Why would the medaktikim do it? If my grandfather was a real Baal Halacha, really knew his stuff, he would make egg salad Shabbos day. When I heard this, I was very surprised many years ago. But there's two reasons that people explain why people do this. Either they want to teach everybody the halachas, because they'll see how you have to, the people in the family will see how to make the egg salad. They'll learn the halachas. That's one reason. But the other reason is you don't get involved in these shaylos. The Ben Ish Chai wouldn't be very happy with our egg salad that you made in Erev Shabbos. So the medaktikim that don't want to be semich on the kulas, even though the minig is to be semich on those kulas, so they would make egg salad on Shabbos morning. Fine. Chopped up onions and garlic, leaving that overnight. Is it only full onions and full garlic? What about chopped up? So it seems to be clear from a Tosfos and Beitza, I think it was Yudalit, if I remember correctly, that chopped up doesn't help. Chopped up is still a problem. What about onion or garlic powder? What is? You ever stop and think about this for a second? What's onion powder? What's garlic powder? Well, it's onions and garlic that's cut, dried out, and then cut very small over many, many nights. Over some, sits on your shelf for 3 months, 6 months, a year, I don't know. Over a year of nights. Ooh, that doesn't sound so cool, right? So is that, and don't think, I'll buy it and use it up in one day. Don't worry, it's been sitting over many nights before it got to your shelf too. How do we do that? That doesn't sound cool. And now we just said that cut up and chopped up doesn't help. Oy vavoy. So, what's the deal? So I saw some poskim, right? It's okay because they mix in other ingredients. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. I'll get that in a second. Very good. I looked at my container. Ingredients, onion, garlic. I don't know. Unless they know some secret that I don't know. Once again, I didn't do like a super investigative, hire a private investigator to go down to the thing. It seems to me that it's just onion and garlic. That's what it seems like, unless I'm missing something. So, what's the deal? So the Mesa, l'chayr we can be mekel. Why? Because it's a different product. Once again, using the concept, as Moshe says, we're only machmer for what said in the Gemara. It says onion. This is no longer onion. Once you go and you dry it out, go through some process of drying it out, and then chopping it into a gazillion pieces, teensy pieces. Not just, this isn't regular cut up. I imagine, the Gemara, the Taisus and Beitza is talking about chopping up eggs. I don't think this is how people, make powder. It's not how they normally chop up eggs. It's not, it's much more extreme. And therefore, it's a different product. And I'll give you proof that that's considered a different product. In Hilchos Brachos, when you turn something into a powder, you'll change the bracha from Adama to Shahakal, generally. And therefore, l'chayra, it's a different product. And therefore, it would not be a problem. What about, that's fine when I say powder, what about onion or garlic flakes? They make these flakes, which are much bigger. You can still see a stick of onion in those flakes. So I would say the pashas is still, you can be mekel. Because the ma'aseh, it's still a different product. You're doing a process, you're drying it out and cutting it quite small. L'chayra, it's still a different product, and l'chayra, the isser would not apply. Now, over there, if somebody wanted to be a little bit machmer, maybe you could hear it a little bit, but the pashas is certainly for one to be mekel. And I would say the minced garlic and the ground garlic, I think it goes different. I think it goes powder, ground, minced, flakes, and size-wise, I think. So those ground and the minced, which are in the middle, so the chayr they're fine. The chayr is nothing to worry about. The flakes, I could maybe hear somebody wanting to argue, but I think still it's also fine. Fine. Now, I heard that in Kloisenberg's and Sands, they're machmer on all these. The flakes, the mince, even the powder, they're machmer not to use it. Because once again, I hear it, once you're not working with the shina ketzas, and you're treating it as a straight up isser, you're treating it as the cause of cancer, so you stay away from that, I hear. Okay. There is a monumental heter brought to you by none other than Reb Moshe. What's the heter of Reb Moshe? The heter is when eggs are cracked, or onions or garlic, the same would be true. When eggs are cracked for commercial use, when I say commercial use, what I mean is not that I crack 40 for tomorrow, but they're being cracked in mass for a leader point. They're not designed to be used today or tomorrow. They're designed to be used later in the future. That is allowed. Huh? How is that allowed? Why? Zater Moshe. That's not left overnight. What do you mean not left overnight? It's left over 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Exactly. A regular egg, which is in the house, you do it for today. Oh, we didn't end up using it today. It got left overnight. Over here, the whole design isn't for use now. The whole design is I'm cracking it now for later. And since I'm cracking it now for later, Memela, it's not considered left overnight, and it would be allowed. It wouldn't be a problem. And Ramosha actually has a raya from the way that he learns Tosfos and Beitza, and Beya, and that is what it means. Now, to be clear, and Ramosha has a whole tshuva that he goes, because somebody argued on him based on, questioned him, I should say, because how could he say that? The Tosfos, a different Tosfos proves that leaving it overnight is a problem, even if it was done on purpose. So he clarifies. If somebody goes and cracks the eggs for tomorrow, kavana for tomorrow, that's considered left overnight. Because that's a normal home egg that was, you would have done it tomorrow, it was just more convenient to do it today. Which is a totally different mindset than when you're cracking, 5,000 eggs to go into a container to be used in 3 weeks. Because the whole matzah of the cracking is for later on. Maybe in your house, if you crack, like before Pesach, we know we're going to use a lot of eggs, so I'm going to crack 100 eggs for the next week and a half of Pesach, that might be okay. But if I'm going to crack 10 eggs to be used over to tomorrow and the next day, that would be a problem. Where to draw the line will be very difficult in the house. Ramosha warns against a caterer cannot go and crack 50 eggs that he's going to use tomorrow. Because he's going to use it right away. He's just doing it today. He has more time to crack it today than tomorrow. But in theory, he would crack it right before if it was convenient. So that's a different. That doesn't help the caterer cracking 50 eggs for tomorrow. But the cracking for later on, that would be okay. That's the monumental heter for Moshe, and therefore, according to Moshe, all the containers of pre-cracked eggs will all be allowed. Mm-hmm. And once again, a lot of restaurants and caterers, they buy they buy the onions which are pre-peeled, but I think they leave the roots on them, I believe. So that wouldn't be such a problem. And they buy the garlic, which is pre-peeled, and that would be fine because when they're commercially making the garlic, besides the heta that we discussed previously, or maybe that they leave on the root, additionally we have the Ramosha, who they're peeling it commercially. They're not peeling it to be used tomorrow. And by the way, our onion powder and our garlic powder and even our garlic flakes, we also have the Ramosha. Because when they did it, they didn't do it to be used that day. They did it to be used whenever. So this Ramosha heter will help us a lot. The Mishnah Halachos, or Menashe Klein, asked the Ramosha what? The Ruach Ra is about to jump on it and says, "Oh wait! Are you guys using this commercially?" And then the Ruach Ra doesn't go on it. No way! That's a pella. It can't be. And Ramosha is a pella, and you can't rely on Ramosha. That's what Menashe Klein says. I think we could defend Ramosha, because first of all, Ramosha has a raya from Tosfos. Once again, it depends. It's not the only way of learning Tosfos, but Lameister, Ramosha has a raya from Tosfos. And secondly, there's some shmois in the Gemara. It's left overnight. This wasn't left overnight. This was designed. So I'm not saying it's the only way to learn the Gemara, but you could hear it in the Gemara. So once you could hear it in the Gemara, and he has a raya from Tosfos, I'm not saying there's no other way to learn, but I think we could defend Ramosha from being called a pella and being called, how could it be? Zakt Rebelsky says something very interesting. Rebelsky says that he's maskim that Ramosha is a chiddush. Ramosha is his Rebbe. So he's maskim it's a chiddush, but he says the Meiser Ramosha is right. But even if you're going to make a logical argument that Ramosha wasn't right, being that Ramosha was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world in Psak, and he went and said the Ruach Ra will not go on to commercially peeled onions, garlic, eggs. Once he said that, then the Ruach Ra will stay away, because that Ramosha gave the Psak. And therefore, let me see the Mudas Chacham of Rebelsky, Ramosha said it, so the Ruach Ra is not going to mess. You think the Ruach Ra will mess with Ramosha? No way. And therefore, even if you don't like the svara of Rav Moshe, you could still be mekel. Very interesting. I could see why somebody would argue with this point, but it's very interesting. The Maisa, the Kloisenberger Hasidim were not very happy, and they didn't accept this psak of Rav Moshe. Another possible heter is a very interesting question. It's going to be very negay in America, for example. Is there ruach ra on goyish owned eggs? Most of the egg powder, the garlic powders and all, regular goyish companies. What happens? And then it's like sitting on the shelf, and then when you buy it, all of a sudden the ruach ra goes and jumps upon it. I mean, it's possible, but look, I don't know. Is that how it works? So it's unclear whether the ruach ra goes on it. Rav Yashiv, there's one of these no-name sefers that I never heard of. Says he asked Rav Yashiv, and Rav Yashiv said there's no ruach ra by goyim. Did that conversation actually happen? I don't know, but it makes sense. So why not? Okay. Now, can you wash the eggs and garlic 3 times? Sometimes there's certain things that when they get tummy, the place can bring down when you leave something under your bed, and you get some form of ruach ra. You could wash it 3 times and get the ruach ra off. So does that work for this? So most places say it doesn't work over here because we don't have a raya that it does work. But I think I saw that the Shevet Kasi allows it, actually, if I remember correctly. I don't have it written down, but I think that's what I saw. Now, what type of onions does this apply to? Does it apply to all onions? So yes, it applies to all the scallops. It applies to the white onion, the yellow onion, the red onion. I saw like a bunch of poskim say, and it applies to the red onion. When you see that, just as something that I learned in my day, they're going la'afuke somebody. I don't know who they're going after because I couldn't find anybody that said a red onion is allowed, but I know I'm pretty sure there's somebody that says a red onion's allowed because everybody's pointing out and it applies to a red onion. So I don't know who they're going after, but they're going after somebody because there's somebody that must say that a red onion is okay. So I was thinking, I don't know, what is a red onion? Because I was thinking maybe a red onion is somebody made a shirach between a yellow onion and and a beet or something like that. They got married and they gave birth to a red onion, and maybe that's how we got red onions. And if that was the case, then I would be very cool to say I don't know if ruach ra goes on red onions because me'echatesi. So I did a little Wikipedia search, and from my little Wikipedia search, it seems like as far as we know at least, it seems like there always was red onions. And it wasn't just a shirach between a yellow onion and a beet or something like that. So being that, my Wikipedia has to be right because it says it. So therefore, I think we're going to say that red onions are a problem. But once again, I'm sure that I think there's somebody that's mattered. I couldn't find out who it was. But when you see 4 or 5 people say red onions are asar, there's something up with it. Okay. Scallions or spring onions, as they call it, those are not onions, and therefore there's no problem with them. I mean, you don't even peel those, really, right? Yeah. So they have a nice name, but they're not onions. Fine. Yeah. Okay. So, fine. Now, what about eggs? So it's interesting, Rashi actually seemingly wasn't Ger's eggs, and the Ben Ish Chai doesn't bring down eggs, interestingly enough. Now, what type of eggs do the Isser apply? So the Chazon Ish says it only applies to cooked eggs, hard-boiled eggs. There's only Isser hard-boiled eggs. So the Orchas Rabbeinu brings down that there was a cracked egg that was left overnight, and the Chazon Ish said throwing it out is the Isser of Bal Tashchis. He b'chlal wasn't geiris anything of a non-cooked egg. It's only a hard-boiled egg, seemingly, and it does not apply. Where does the Chazon Ish get this from? So l'chayre he probably gets it from that the Gemara says peeled onions, peeled garlic, and eggs. Now, you don't peel a raw egg. You crack a raw egg. You only peel a cooked egg, a hard-boiled egg. And therefore, he says the Isser does not apply. The Beis Shloima. The Beis Shloima is one of the, Hungarian tshuva writers of, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, I'm not sure exactly. But he was, a big one. And he says that the exact opposite. The Isser only applies to raw eggs. Once it's hard-boiled, no problem. The Isser does not apply to the hard-boiled eggs. Where does he get it from? So the Gemara was talking about raw eggs, raw garlic, so it's probably talking about raw onions as well. Sorry, I said it the wrong way. The Gemara is talking about raw garlic, raw onions, so it's probably talking about raw eggs as well. So that's what the Beis Shloima says. So it's actually an interesting. Tzitz Eliezer says, that once you should be meko lechatchila, but once you have the egg there, so there's so many sveikas. Some people weren't geiris eggs, and once you're geiris eggs, manav shach. If it was raw eggs, that's not a problem to you to the Chazon Ish. And if it was cooked eggs, it's not a problem to the Beis Shloima, and the Shulchan Aruch leaves it out anyways. So the Tzitz Eliezer says you could always be mekel post facto. You can't lechatchila leave it out, but post facto you could always be mekel by eggs. However, l'maisa that's not the minhag. L'maisa the minhag is that we're machmer both ways. We're machmer both in the raw eggs and the hard-boiled eggs. But you know that there's a little. Once you have any other heter in there, there's going to be enough to be mekel. Rabbi Kallis had an interesting suggestion that he wasn't saying it as a authoritative, absolutely the Mesa point, but it was a little bit of a theory. Generally, when the Gemara refers to eggs, it's referring to fertilized eggs. The Gemara is a different term that it uses for unfertilized eggs. Now, so the Gemara, when it's saying Ruach Ra goes on the eggs, it's seemingly talking about fertilized eggs. Now, all our eggs that we buy in the supermarket, unless maybe some like free range eggs from the farm down the block, maybe it might be different. But besides that, 99% of the eggs that come into our houses are unfertilized. Now, our eggs which are unfertilized is seemingly not the eggs of the Gemara. Now, assuming that's true, once again, as I said, I don't have a chavrusa shaf with Ruach Ra. But it's certainly possible that the Ruach Ra goes on the eggs that were shaykh to become a living being, the fertilized eggs, and they don't go onto the eggs which never had any shaykhs to becoming a living being. Once again, as I said, I don't have a chavrusa shaf with the Ruach Ra. That certainly could be. So maybe this doesn't even apply to these eggs. But Lamaisa, we didn't see it in any of the big name Paiskim, but maybe that could be another sniff laheter when necessary, because there's definitely something, it has a good logic to it, something that sounds like it makes sense, but once again, Sarachian. Either way, beware, be careful, let's be makbid, not to leave those guys out overnight. But once again, we see that in many cases there is what to be mekel on. Certainly when it is done in a commercial setting and there is a shinoi, then there certainly is what to be mekel on. And stay safe, beware of overnight eggs, and have a great week.